Before the demonstration begins, are there any questions? She asked, and looked across the sea of people for any raised hands. Seeing none, she gave the signal to start the machine. Stepping down from the podium and removing her sweater, Jemima rolled up the sleeves of her shirt and stepped in front of the humming piece of equipment. Ladies and gentlemen, science takes an exciting leap forward today, and I thank you all for coming here today to be a witness to it, she said with a smile. She turned to face the machine and waited for her cue. As one of her aides readied the machine, the windows high above the auditorium shattered as two clockwork minions crashed through to the auditorium floor below. The crowd screamed and began to scatter as people ran for the exits. Jemima cried out but was unable to move. One of the sprockets turned to face the humming machine. It chittered excitedly as it heard the hum. Suddenly a figure dropped down from the opening made by the two sprockets, landing square on top of the sprocket closest to the machine and crushing it. Jemima looked up to see the hero known as Sarfrasine, the super speedy member of the Hestia Odysseus. "I'll have these nuisances out of your hair momentarily," Sarfrasine said with a smile as he turned to face the other sprocket. As Jemima watched, Sarfrasine sped toward the remaining sprocket in a blur and knocked it backward into the stands. In a flash it was back up and blasting electricity at the hero. He easily dodged it and smashed into the sprocket once again, this time obliterating it. The rogue bolt of electricity may have missed Sarfrasine, but it struck Jemima's invention dead on, causing it to shake violently, and arc electricity from it. Jemima screamed as she watched, helplessly frozen in fear as the once green sands of Mu crystal changed to a blood red as it became overloaded with energy. Sarfrasine turned toward the scream and saw the machine fire a red beam of light at the cowering girl for a few seconds, and then explode violently, sending the young blonde flying and crashing through a nearby wall. Sarfrasine raced toward the rubble, and gasped as he saw a motionless bloody hand buried beneath the pile of debris. Defining moments in your life can come from anywhere. At one point in time, being born incontinent was my big defining moment. When I got a bit older, my defining moment was getting a scholarship and grant for my research. Further still, my life was defined by the promise of a cure, and creating a life-changing invention. But, the greatest defining moments are sometimes the ones that you have no control over. The ones that blindside you on a random Tuesday, and change your life forever. There was a faint beeping that woke her up. A heart monitor next to her bed. Her eyes opened slowly, the sunlight streaming through the window causing her to squint in pain. The whiteness of the room seemed to reflect the light at her, causing her to pull the blanket over her head. What happened, she thought to herself as she emerged from under the blanket and looked around. Flashes of the incident whizzed through her mind. She saw the small robotic clockwork fighting with Sarfrasine, and then everything went black. She sighed and rubbed her temple. "Are you feeling any better, miss?" a voice asked her, startling her slightly. Looking up, she saw Sarfrasine standing in the doorway. She nodded and attempted a smile. "You saved me, thank you," she said. Sarfrasine came closer. "I tried to save you. That sprocket got off a blast at me, and missed and hit your machine. It exploded and knocked you through a wall. I was afraid you weren't going to make it," he told her. "Through a wall? How did I survive?" she asked him. Sarfrasine shrugged. "I'm not sure, but whatever that machine did to you when it blasted you, it saved your life," he told her. The machine blasted me, she thought. Did the cure work? She asked herself and quickly looked under the blankets. Her heart sank when she saw another diaper taped on her. She felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you again, Sarfrasine. Could you leave now?" she asked as politely as she could. Sarfrasine frowned. "Yeah, you're welcome, glad to see you're okay," he said and left her to cry. The wind on top of the building was a lot more powerful than she thought it would be. Standing on the ledge, she looked down at the city streets below. The streetlight in front of the hospital seemed to give her a landing marker as she stared at it. Wiping the tears from her eyes for the millionth time since she woke up in the hospital 3 days ago, Jemima sighed and took her small step and her giant leap into her destiny. It's amazing the amount of thoughts you go through when you're plummeting to your impending doom, memories of loved ones, of summers past, and the cold realization of what it is you're doing. Jemima went through these things, and started screaming as she fell. After the weight of her decision sunk in, she changed her mind. But as she rocketed toward the earth, it was too little too late. The impact set off car alarms blocks away. The crater she left looked like a meteor had hit. And as she opened her eyes and stood up from what she had assumed would be her grave, she could think only one thing: what the hell? So you're telling me that I have superpowers? She asked the doctor. Dr. Simpson cleared his throat before speaking. Mrs. Featherford, the results of our tests are inconclusive. We know that the blast from that machine has altered your physiology somehow. We're just not certain to what extent, he told her as he examined her chart. Jemima smiled as she thought about her 20-story swan dive she'd done a few days before. Thank you, doctor. I appreciate all you've done for me, she said as she shook his hand and skipped out of his office.